One of the things that fascinated me about Fallout isn't the radiation, or the wasteland, or the collapse. It's what happens to people after the systems they depend on disappear. Because the more I watched it, the more it stopped feeling like science fiction. And I started feeling like a distorted version of the world we already lived in. Different setting, same patterns. And quick context, if you haven't seen Fallout, the show takes place after a nuclear war. Most of the surface is dangerous, unstable, and hard to survive. So before everything fell apart, some people were placed into underground shelters called vaults. And that's where things get interesting. Fallout doesn't feel like a world without belief. It feels like a world that replaced belief. Because when everything collapses, people don't stop worshipping. They just change what they worship. And maybe that's the strange part. It's not people losing faith, it's people becoming confident. They don't need it anymore. Before the bombs fell, Fallout World already felt different from ours. It's set in an alternate version of America that kept the look and culture of the late 1950s and early 60s, the atomic age era. So everything feels nostalgic: old school diners, vintage ads, the optimistic future of tomorrow aesthetic, paired with advanced technology. Honestly, it kind of feels like stepping into a postcard version of the past, comfortable, clean, and orderly. And that's the part of the appeal, because it doesn't feel random, it feels intentional and familiar, which matters because that nostalgia is tied to belief. People believed progress was guaranteed, that technology would save them, that everything was under control. And when the bombs dropped, that belief didn't disappear. It just got preserved underground. Inside those vaults, life is structured. There are rules, schedules, clear hierarchies. Each vault is run by an overseer, not a king, not a hero, just someone responsible for maintaining order and enforcing the system. And I'll be honest, I've never played the Fallout games, which is probably a crime in some corners of the internet. I apologize in advance. I came into the show expecting chaos, radiation, survival drama. What I didn't expect was how organized everything felt, almost ceremonial, which is when it clicked. Fallout isn't really about the end of the world, it's about what happens when religions get replaced by systems. Because the vaults don't feel like emergency shelters, they feel like sanctuaries. Look at how they're introduced: the massive doors, the controlled entry, the sense of being chosen to survive. It's not random survival, it's curated survival. That's what makes them feel less like bunkers and more like modern arcs. In ancient stories, the arc wasn't just about escaping destruction. It was about preservation, about carrying life forward, about trusting something beyond human control. The vaults look similar on the surface, but the motivation is completely different. This isn't obedience, it's confidence. Human planning, human optimization, human belief that we don't need anything higher because we can build the answers ourselves. Not fate, hubris. And that's exactly what the vaults do. They don't just protect people, they preserve a version of society, a specific way of living, a controlled idea of what humanity should be. Inside the vaults, survival isn't about being good, it's about being compliant. Follow the protocol, respect the hierarchy, trust the system. Morality becomes procedural. Not what's right, but what's allowed. People do things that feel wrong, but technically correct. Because when a system becomes sacred, breaking rules feels worse than hurting people. That's when obedience replaces conscience. Then there are the overseers. They're not portrayed as cartoon villains, which is almost worse because at least cartoon villains are honest about it. They don't preach God, they preach stability. They interpret rules, maintain order, protect the system, even when it costs human dignity. They're not spiritual leaders, they're managers of belief. Belief in structure, belief in control, belief that a vault way of life is the only safe way to exist. And when people trust that fully, that's not leadership anymore, that's doctrine. Now, let's talk about technology. Because Fallout doesn't worship God, it worships solutions. Vault-Tec propaganda is full of optimism, smiling families, bright futures, promises that science can save you. Technology stops being a tool. It becomes moral authority. If it works, it must be right. But what Fallout keeps showing us is that control disguised as safety is still in control, and convenience disguised as salvation is still dependency. Then comes the wasteland. Outside the vault, everything changes. There's no system telling you who to be, no structure deciding what's acceptable, and suddenly character matters again. Not compliance, not protocol, it's choice. The wasteland isn't just chaos, it's a moral testing ground. It strips away artificial order and forces people to reveal who they actually are. And this is where Fallout stops being science fiction. Because it's not really asking, what if the world ends? It's asking something older. What if human nature doesn't change? Before the bombs, people believed they could engineer the perfect future, design the right systems, build the right safeguards, control the outcome. Not fate, hubris. And after the bombs, that instinct doesn't disappear. It just gets smaller, more desperate, more survival focused. Different world, same mistake. That's what makes Fallout feel mythic. Not because civilization collapsed, but because it shows the same cycle repeating. Human built structures. Those structures become rigid. They fail, and instead of learning humility, we rebuild them again with new names and the same confidence. The vaults weren't a fresh start. They were proof that we never stopped trying to play God. And maybe that's the real warning. Not nuclear war, not monsters, not the wasteland, but the quiet belief that this time we finally get it right.